I'm Christian Dorsey, and you're watching VoiceBox. One of the unique things about the world that we live in today is that we're overloaded with information. But how much of it is really focused on what is nearest and dearest to us, our local communities? To be able to give you the news that you can use and understand the true role that many people and organizations are having in making our community one that we're proud of. Good evening and welcome to VoiceBox. I'm your host, Christian Dorsey, and tonight we'll be taking a look at needs in Arlington County. We have many in our community who are struggling to survive, and we're going to have three organizations who are homegrown organizations here in Arlington who meet various needs that people in our community face. Joining us tonight, we have Jerry Shannon, who's the Executive Director for Arlingtonians Meeting Emergency Needs. We also have Jody Kelly, who's the Director of Clinical Administration at the Arlington Free Clinic, and Charles Meng, who's the Executive Director of the Arlington Food Assistance Center. Now, all three of you, first of all, welcome. Thank you for joining VoiceBox tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Indeed. And this summer, your organizations participated in a joint project with AIM where you developed public service announcements to alert the wider Arlington community about the services that you offer, the clients that you serve, and just how you're helping make Arlington a better place. We're going to show those videos to start off our night here at VoiceBox. We are Arlington Free Clinic, the medical safety net for Arlington's most vulnerable adult residents. With our regular staff and team of 560 extraordinary volunteers, we provide comprehensive care for our patients. Our partnership with Virginia Hospital Center provides access to state-of-the-art facilities and diagnostic centers. The remarkable generosity of individuals, businesses, and community organizations funds the care we provide. Please visit our website to find out how you can help us work to create a healthier community, one patient at a time. In 2011, 461 Arlington residents were counted as homeless, and 112 of those were children. Those numbers would have been even higher if it were not for Arlingtonians Meeting Emergency Needs, Amen, being on the front line fighting homelessness since 1975. Amen provides same-day emergency financial assistance to Arlington residents to help prevent eviction or to assist residents in paying utility, medical, or other miscellaneous bills.
Your rent, you're here for this current month's rent, correct?
The work that we do would be impossible if it were not for the help that we get from Amen.
Arlingtonians Meeting Emergency Needs is providing an essential safety net service in your community. Visit www.emergencyneeds.org to find out how you can help.
At Arlington Food Assistance Center, our mission is to provide nutritious supplemental groceries to our Arlington neighbors in need. An average of 1,350 low-income families receive food from AFAC every week. These families are made up of nearly 3,600 individuals, a third of whom are either children under the age of 18 or the elderly residing in low-income senior living facilities. We receive over 2 million pounds of food annually, donated to us by individuals and through many food drives held by schools, congregations, businesses, service organizations, and governmental entities. With client numbers on the rise, AFAC remains dedicated to fighting the food insecurity faced by so many Arlingtonians. For more information on how to get involved, visit www.afac.org.
So, tonight here on VoiceBox, we're going to look at all three of these organizations and the work that they do helping Arlingtonians in need. As always, you are invited to join in on this conversation by emailing us at voicebox@arlingtonmedia.org. Jerry, I want to start with you and talking about Amen. Amen is the oldest organization represented here on the panel today, and it may be one that a lot of people don't have any real interaction with on a daily basis. So tell us a little bit about Amen's work and what you're doing to very concretely help people manage their lives.
Amen has been around for 36 years, providing emergency financial assistance, which will pay for rent, utilities, medical and dental bills, prescriptions, transportation or work-related expenses. And we require a social worker's referral to receive assistance. So we receive referrals from county social workers, from ASPAN, who's working with homeless people, from Doorways for Women and Children, for all of the above named needs. And we have seen since 2008, which I guess is about the time the economic downturn started, a great increase in the demand for assistance. And Amen has tried to become a little more sophisticated in fundraising to be able to meet the need. Although we keep some statistics and have to say no to some social worker requests, which is really unfortunate. But because we require a social worker's referral and we don't have case workers, we are less visible than some other organizations because we just write the checks. But we can turn around a check on the same day. A social worker will call my volunteer who's on duty from 1 to 5, and the client or the social worker can pick up the check the same day at dinner time, and the check is always made out to the creditor, the landlord, the utility company, etc.
This seems rather unique. You often hear of subsidies, or you hear of in-kind gifts to people, services offered to people, but direct cash assistance, this seems like something that doesn't exist everywhere. How unique is Amen in terms of the kinds of programs and services you offer compared to maybe other jurisdictions?
Well, I do know that other jurisdictions do provide such assistance. Fairfax County, Montgomery County. I think Arlington is doing a good job of coordinating, having the funding in one place to do so. Because we do what churches used to do many decades ago, and what the Salvation Army still does in some areas. And so some religious-related groups will do it in other organizations. But now we get a lot of support from churches because they're happy to have clients, people asking for help, to be vetted and assessed by a social worker.
And Jody, let's talk about healthcare for a few minutes here. It's certainly been a topic of national conversation over the last couple of years, and people are very well aware usually that we have approximately 50 million uninsured people in this country, but the free clinic looks at these uninsured on a daily basis. Tell me a little bit about the services you offer, who you offer them to, and just how great the demand is.
Well, as Jerry said, the demand increased. We've been around since 1993. The clinic started. It started in the nurse's office of a middle school with, I think, the story goes there were twice as many volunteers as patients that night. I think there were 4 patients and 8 volunteers. And we've changed a lot since that time. We now have over 1,600 patients we see annually. We have over 500 volunteers, many physicians in the area. You would recognize a lot of the top physicians in the Arlington area and the surrounding area as being our volunteers. We provide, there are a lot of different free clinic models. Our model provides very high quality health care, comprehensive health care to people. Demand has grown. It went up, I would say, about 200% in 2008. And unfortunately, like many of the nonprofits, we're not able to meet all the needs, but we're very pleased that we continue taking new patients, about 500 a year. We take in about 25 patients a month through a lottery, and then about 25 through the hospital.
So certainly we're hearing from both of you that despite your ability to grow, you're still finding that you're unable to meet all of the needs that are presented to you.
Mm-hmm.
Charles, tell us about the Food Assistance Center, Arlington's food pantry. It's gone through a similar story in terms of seeing the increased need. How have you been able to respond?
Well, we've been able to respond really through the great generosity of the community, both in terms of revenue that they give us, but also in terms of the food that is donated to us through food drives. That is absolutely essential to our ability to serve the number of clients we're now serving. Last month we served the most individuals we have ever served in our 23-year life. At the beginning of this month we hit an all-time record, serving 1,605 families. In real terms, that's 4,024 individuals, a third of whom are children under the age of 18. To do that takes a lot. It takes a lot of very dedicated volunteers. It takes a lot of donations in terms of food and in terms of cash. We, unlike a lot of food pantries, provide food, supplemental groceries, approximately 40 pounds a week, 4 to 5 weeks a month. That is what most food pantries in the United States provide once a month. In simple terms, that's 54,000 pounds a week. Oftentimes 200 to 250,000 pounds of food a month.
Now, looking at those, those incredible totals, what does that get a typical family in terms of their basket of goods for a week? How are you able to, add to their nutritional balance?
Well, all of our clients will get a dozen eggs, half gallon of milk, 2 pounds of frozen chicken, 4 pounds for a large family. They'll get a small bag of groceries, 2 bags for a large family. And then we have made a point of having additional fresh produce, fruit, vegetables, and a good selection of that. And then we have all of the things that are donated to us that doesn't fit into any category. We operate on what's called the choice model. Okay, most food pantries will give a client a box of food that they have put together for that client. What we do is we let our clients choose, because if they choose, they're more likely to use that food, and they will choose things that their family likes. So that that also, in many ways, respects the client and the dignity of the process.
Well, and certainly that's a hugely important point in the success of any organization serving, serving clients who have real human service needs. Now, Jerry, you see clients who, the stories are just all over the place in terms of what their situations are, facing eviction, utility turnoffs.
Right.
What are some of the more common needs that you see presented to you?
I think most of our clients fall in the category of low-income workers, low-income families, and if they face an emergency of any kind that affects their family budget, they don't know where to turn. We have a case of a single working mother who, because her job moved out of Arlington, she needed to drive. She got a car, the car wasn't terrific, her battery died. We were able to pay for a replacement of the battery so that she could go to her job, so that she could pay her rent, take care of the kids. Just sometimes little things like that. And recently, actually in the last couple of years, we've seen a lot more individuals and families who had always been independent, who never expected to have to go to social services, and for unusual reasons, a young family that were sent, had to leave their apartment when there was a fire on their floor. They were making too much money to get help from social services. They're paying for a hotel. You know, it was disruptive. They couldn't get at their belongings. By the time they got got an apartment, they didn't have the cash to put down to get into a new apartment, even though they were making a decent salary. And we were able to give them about a month and a half's assistance, because now a lot of landlords are asking for 2 months down.
Okay.
In addition to the first month's rent. So we were able to help them because it was clear they were going to be on their own, and they wanted to be independent, and they were very happy for the help. And I don't expect to see that family again.
Right.
In some cases, you see people who are, they might have a disability and they're on a fixed income, and you may see them once a year, every other year, because they just need help to get by, because they can't take care of themselves altogether.
And we know from national statistics, Jody, that lack of health care coverage and the resulting medical bills that people incur, it's a leading cause of bankruptcy in this country. There are many people who go without health care who don't fit the stereotypical picture of someone who's in need. Yet, walking through the clinic, you see people with all kinds of situations and circumstances. What are some of the more typical ones that you see that kind of reflect the nature of health insecurity in Arlington?
Well, most of our patients are what we call the working poor in Arlington. Many of them have 1, 2, even 3 jobs, and so they work, and most of them, and a lot of them prior to 2008 were kind of living on the edge, and then some of them fell off that edge. As Jerry was saying, the needs, continue to grow, and we serve only uninsured people, so they really have no other health care. They can go to the emergency room, of course, but that's treating something. That's not comprehensive health care. And when Jerry said she didn't expect to see that family and getting them on, that's what we look at too, is what are the outcomes from having health care? A lot of people we see have never had health care, and they don't come to us until they're quite sick. They they take care of their food, for Charlie, and they take care of really to keep them alive, and often health care can be perceived more as a luxury. So when we see them, many of our patients have had undiagnosed illnesses for a while, so they're quite sick. So one thing we can do through the generosity of the community, it's interesting because the community provides wonderful support. We couldn't exist without the community. We have our volunteers, but they're enriched as well, because our patients, not only through the service to other people, which I think we all feel enriched by that, and Arlington is I think a model community in that area, but also a lot of these people simply wouldn't be working. They couldn't provide for their families. They would completely fall off the edge without our services. We had a young woman a couple of weeks ago, she came to us, but she had a baby, and 8 days after the baby, she had a massive stroke. She was 34 years old, so completely out of the blue. No health insurance. Her son found her, and she was taken to Virginia Hospital Center and through the emergency room, and then she was given rehab, and then she came to us, and she's had intensive physical therapy with us for a few weeks now. And the last time I saw her, she was walking on her own.
Okay.
She still had some damage, but she will, in all likelihood, be able to care for this child. Without the clinic, sadly enough, there wouldn't really, her immediate need would be taken care of, but she wouldn't have that continuing care to make her part of society, or be able to contribute again to society, to her children, take care of her children.
So as you can see, these 3 organizations are critical planks in the social safety net to help people from falling into utter despair. You're invited to join this conversation. Send us an email, voicebox@arlingtonmedia.org. We'll also take questions from our studio audience whenever anyone has them. And I want to talk a little bit about that, the overall social safety net and the overall network that we have to help people in need. There are partnerships that all of you all have with not only individuals in the community, but local government. I don't know about state, federal government. Tell me a little bit about how you're able to bring all of these various resources together to fulfill your missions. Why don't we start with you, Charles?
Well, we at AFAC do not receive any federal or state funds. We do receive about $375,000 from the county. But that is really only about 8% of our budget. The rest of it comes from private donations. A great objective of mine every year is raising that additional $2.5 million. But I must say it's fairly, we have a very supportive community. So it is not as difficult. I think the thing that we face, and particularly our families face, is the employment issue. You know, Arlington County has an unemployment rate of 3.8%. However, those individuals who are unemployed are concentrated in the lowest economic brackets of our society. And there the unemployment rate really is much higher. And those are the people that we're trying to serve. Because without breakfast, you know, a kid goes to school hungry, not prepared to work. You know, without food, a family starts breaking down. Or they make bad decisions. We see a lot of our elderly clients, and we have over 450 elderly individuals. They are facing increased costs, fuel costs, housing costs, medicine costs. And the thing that they unfortunately skimp on is food. The elderly tend not to eat so much, so that they just eat simple things or things that are not nutritionally balanced in their diet. So by providing chicken, by providing fresh vegetables and fruit, we hope that we can help them with a more balanced diet.
And speaking of making choices, often one of the choices people make, particularly if they feel okay, is, well, I can go without health care. I can go without worrying about whether or not I'm covered in the case of acute or chronic illness, and often it sneaks up on people through catastrophic circumstances. What do you expect, Jody? And I know it's too early to tell in terms of a crystal ball prediction, but we've got a new healthcare law in this country which on some level promises to cover more people. What do you think that's going to mean for the clinic moving forward in terms of what its clientele is going to look like?
Well, we get that question a lot, as you can imagine, and actually we get it a lot from European countries. They're very interested in what we're doing at Arlington Free Clinic. Excuse me. I don't think it's going to change a lot in the near term. First, we don't know what the law is going to look like. We don't know what the coverage will be. If it was enacted, I believe, everything is so up in the air.
Sure.
If it's enacted as it was proposed and passed, Medicaid coverage would probably have the biggest impact on the clinic, because Virginia is very low in terms of Medicaid coverage. I think we're the fourth lowest in the nation, perhaps, and I think it's 40% of poverty level to get Medicaid. So the national number would be 133% of poverty. Right. So that would be a large group of people who would then be eligible for Medicaid. We serve possibly 10% of the people who would like to be in the clinic, so we're near up to capacity now. So we don't anticipate a slowdown in demand at all in the future. One very important thing, not only for the clinic, but in the country as a whole in terms of the healthcare reform or healthcare in general, is going to be access to primary care physicians. There's
big shortage in this country,
There's
right?
a very big shortage of overall. So if you funnel in the number of uninsured who, which is a good thing to have them insured, that they'll have access, we're going to have to figure out how to provide that care. So we will, in all likelihood, see some of those people as well, just who may be covered through Medicaid or through the insurance exchanges, but who simply don't have access yet.
And Jerry, certainly a lot of your work at Amen deals with people who have housing insecurity. And one of the things we all know in Arlington is that housing is fairly scarce in terms of we don't have a lot of buildable land area, and that seems to escalate prices not only in boom times, but also even during recessions and recoveries, where it seems like rental rates continue to increase steadily.
That's right.
This must be something that's a constant pressure on many of the people that Amen sees.
Absolutely. I think an average two-bedroom rent in Arlington now is very close to $2,000 a month, and that's unbelievable when you consider a working family who are may never be in a position to own a home, and they're renting at that amount. And Arlington, the community and the county, has a program to end homelessness and to put people in homes. And Amen is Amen's work supports that. And so actually about 50% of what we spent in FY11, the year that ended this past June, and that is about $450,000, went to rental assistance because the figures are so big. And families with children are a high priority, so you want to keep them in homes because homelessness is devastating to a child in many ways, and of course the family. I don't know where this goes. I mean, I don't know. I don't see increases in, I don't see rental rates going down or changing. I applaud those who are building more affordable housing. We've got a couple of organizations in town that are doing a great job at that. But even that, you have to be at 50 or 60% of median income.
Yeah.
That's right. And a lot of our clients fall below that. Yeah. Where do they go? It's difficult, but we're doing what we can, and I also have to applaud so many of the social workers in the county that I work with, as well, and private organizations, work so hard, bend over backwards, do somersaults to find solutions for people. Now we're all working to get folks independent again. So we might provide assistance for rent or utility, but the social worker might refer them for help to get a better job, or to do some kind of training, or to get substance abuse counseling, so that eventually those people can be independent. So there's a lot going on in Arlington. It's a very caring community, and I think we're doing a pretty good job.
I think so.
You've all slightly alluded to this, and Charles, we got from you that Arlington County contributes about 8% towards the budget for AFAC. For Jody, starting with you, what is the free clinics relationship with the county, and how does it partner, assist, or involve itself with the clinic and its operations?
Well, the county was instrumental when we moved to our new clinic location, which we own now in South Arlington, where most of our patients are. 2 years ago we moved there, and the county was instrumental in helping us get access to that space, and I think they helped us get a little additional space. We get over, I think it's about 96% of our funding comes from private sources, so we're not part of the government. We get a small amount from the state, and then we did get a small amount, a grant from Arlington County this year for the first year, but most of our funding comes from individuals, grants, and businesses. And then with the clinic, of course, a huge amount of, it isn't funding, but our, whatever you call it, our product or whatever, is our volunteers. We have about 160 physicians who support the clinic, 70 of whom come into the clinic, and then the others take patients on a referral basis. So that is a huge amount. I mean, you can't, to try and put a dollar figure on that, it becomes a huge amount. We have a relationship with Virginia Hospital Center. They're probably our primary partner. They do all of our labs and radiology for us. And then we, in turn, take some of their patients that they need to discharge who are very sick without insurance. We will take them directly into the clinic. They bypass our lottery. We have a lottery to get into the clinic because demand is so high. So it's a good relationship. We try and keep people out of their emergency room, and they are just incredibly supportive of the clinic. We couldn't do it without them, literally. So.
I'm going to ask a question that people at home may have, hearing that there's minimal in terms of direct funding, not minimal. There's a small relationship compared to your overall budgets that you get from government sources in most cases, and there are needs that you're not able to meet in the community. So a question people may have at home is, what about this caring community that we're a part of? Is there a role for the government, supported by us as taxpayers, to do more? And I'm not putting you in the position of appearing ungrateful, so that's really not my intent. But what about this gap of unmet needs? How are we going to fill it? If the community is stepping up in a great way, Is government the answer? Are there other answers?
In the case of Amen, I just have to distinguish it from these organizations. The county does play a role.
A bigger role.
Yeah, we
yes.
get almost 50% of our funding from the county. Now that has varied over the years, and 5 years ago it was closer to 40%, but when they increased safety net funding, we got a piece of that. But so they gave us, in the current fiscal year, we get about $450,000 from the county,
Okay.
and we will raise another $500,000.
Okay.
And because Amen is an older organization, a little old-fashioned, and only the last 15 months have I had a part-time person devoted to fundraising.
Oh, okay.
That we expect that to change things, and because we do want to be able to meet the unmet need.
Okay.
But the county does play a role.
Okay.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And I think for us at AFAC, we really look at it as a public-private partnership. Really what that term means is what AFAC does. We can do things that the county cannot do. We can move on a dime if necessary. We can raise money, which the county cannot raise except by raising taxes. So in that way, we do lessen the burden, and we bring people who are interested in our mission to our center to volunteer, to run food drives for us, and to assist in the overall operation of AFAC. So when I went to the county board, I really underscored the fact that AFAC is indeed, and I'm sure it's the same with these other agencies, this is a public-private partnership and an example, a real light in our community.
And all three of you have talked about volunteers and getting these incredibly generously spirited Arlingtonians involved in your work, and just give us a sense of what the volunteer opportunities are like with your organizations. What can people listening at home who haven't been exposed to the free clinic and AFAC and Amen, what are some of the things that they could do to help you in your work? Let's start with you, Jody.
Well, there are lots of things at the clinic.
If they're not a physician.
That's right. We don't turn anyone away at the clinic. And we have a volunteer director who is fabulous. But obviously we always need more doctors. Specialists are in especially great demand, actually, in primary care physicians as well. But we have a whole host of support services as well for the clinic. Nurses, obviously, and clinic administrators. We have interpreters. Many of our patients don't speak English as their first language. We have some admin roles. So there really is something for everyone. As I said, we have over 500 volunteers, and that's not, a figure we use loosely. There are 500 people who work at the clinic, on a steady basis, once a month, twice as much. Some people. I talked with one volunteer today, and I said, "How long have you been here, Kay?" And she says 10 or 11 years. And she's been here 10 or 11 years once a week, every week. Every Thursday afternoon she's there. And we have a saying that we stand on the shoulders of our volunteers. And again, it truly couldn't exist without the volunteers in the clinic. I can't say enough about them. They're wonderful. So if you want to volunteer, please give us a call.
We will certainly put the contact information back on the screen before we end tonight's show. Jerry.
The primary role for volunteers in Amen, since we write checks, is to receive and process requests from social workers. So I have a volunteer on duty every day who is taking calls, telephone calls from social workers, determining if the request meets our criteria, is it the type of thing we will pay for, and then we'll approve the request. We actually administer the Virginia Dominion Energy Share Program.
Oh, okay.
And I have another volunteer who processes those requests. And of course I have a volunteer board. Nonprofit organizations have boards, and that's a very important function. They are very dedicated, and many have important skills that we need. Now, because we don't move food, we don't see clients, the opportunities are somewhat limited, but there are things to do. We can find things to do in the office. We have mailings that people will help us put together. We might have an event or something going on. So I don't want to, I would love to hear from volunteers because we might be able to find the right activity for them.
Indeed, indeed. Creative Arlington's Amen needs you. Charles.
We're slightly different. We have a dedicated core of volunteers who do our daily distributions in the morning. But we're a little different because we require our volunteers to move groceries constantly, pick up 100-pound bags of rice, 50-pound bags of oatmeal. So we tend to like to find individuals who want an active volunteer experience. And in fact, our saying is if you stand around too long, you're going to be volunteered. So if you come into our shop, expect to work. And there's a very solid bunch of folks, particularly a number of retired individuals who come to us every day. We've got one volunteer, Norm, who comes 3 times a week and has been doing it for 7 or 8 years. His first job was as a grocery store stocker.
Oh, okay.
And I think he's back doing grocery store stockings because he keeps all of our shelves straight and neat.
So regardless of what his profession was, we know what his true love is.
Exactly. The other thing is, that core of dedicated volunteers do take vacations during the summertime. So we've got a summer teens volunteer activity, high school students who come to us on a regular basis during the summertime to work. And they work distributing food to our clients right there. And I think that is an experience that is a tremendously great learning experience for those kids. And they really work hard. And we need them to work hard.
All right. We have a question from our studio audience.
Yes, I'd like to know a few things. One is, it's my impression that AFAC has a relationship with the Arlington County Public Library for their grocery plots or vegetable plots. Am I correct?
Yes.
And I was wondering if there's a plan to expand that, for instance, through the elementary schools or anything. Or churches where other groups would have vegetable plots or whatever to help provide food for.
Yes, that's our Plant a Row program. We will actually give you seeds to plant your garden, all of it as a matter of fact. Our only request is that you return a row of vegetables to us. And that's done in private homes. Almost all of the schools in Arlington County have a school garden that's associated with their biology programs. They teach various sciences through those gardens, and then they donate that food to us. Last year, we received over 150,000 pounds of vegetables that were grown right here in Arlington County, and some very good stuff. I don't think I had a homegrown tomato this whole summer, but I know that a lot of our families were eating homegrown tomatoes right from people's backyards, community gardens. Fort Barnard Park has a great big old community garden up there, and we get a lot of groceries that way. And that's a program that we hope to expand in the future.
Okay, that's great. I also wanted to know, in terms of the free clinic about comprehensive health care, does this include prescription medication? And if so, do you have thoughts on how you might be able to expand the either private sector or public sector involvement in making sure that you have adequate supplies of those?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, we have an in-house pharmacy at the clinic. We distribute, I think the last figure was about $2.5 million worth of medications. Most of them, the vast majority of them, come through patient assistance prescription programs. It's hard to say, it goes by PAP. And that's through the pharmaceutical companies, and they supply the drugs to us free of charge. There's a large, when Christian mentioned volunteer opportunities, there's a lot of paperwork involved in that. So we have a great group of people, volunteers, doing all of that paperwork. But I think it was 17,000 prescriptions we distributed last year. So at this point now, we get all the medications our patients need. I mean, there are some that some cancer pain medications that we don't carry because our pharmacy isn't that class of pharmacy, and we have funding for our patients to get those medications out. So luckily now the patients get what they need.
Okay, thank you. And then I had one last question, which is, do all of your organizations have websites that have wish lists or that sort of thing on them, so that people know what would be most helpful to give?
Yes, and what cash donations are really, most of what we can receive, but we can talk about a $20 gift would buy a prescription. Last year, we paid for $60,000 worth of prescriptions. Or $100 gift could pay somebody's utility bill. A $500 gift can help someone with rent. So we have a few options listed like that.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
And AFAC does the same thing. We have a list of preferred items that we'd like donated to us through food drives, and we run specialty food drives. Cereal food drives. We run a food drive for our backpack program. And of course, we also have a drive coming up for Thanksgiving for not turkeys, but all the fixings that go with that. We also have a virtual food drive where you can actually go on the site and purchase various things and donate money that way.
Hillary, it's a great question, and it kind of leads to the next point that I'd like to raise with all of you. One of the things that's striking about the materials on your website, each of your organizations, either on your website or through your publicity, I've seen how the clients that you serve are not just people who receive help when they're in need, but in some cases, in some pretty remarkable cases, you have, when those clients are back on their feet or in a better place, they pay it forward and give back to other clients that you may serve now. And can you just share, maybe some of those stories, because I just found them remarkable.
We've helped a woman from time to time she was homeless 7 years ago. She had manic depression, mental illness, but by working with a social worker and getting on medication, she's now in a home. She can hold a part-time job. She does get some assistance, but she helps us out when we need a volunteer in the office. We do get people paying back. When we've helped them when they were in a pinch, they will send us a donation to pay back what they received.
And they're under no obligation to do so. Yeah.
No obligation at all. And that's a great feeling to hear from those people. We get a lot of thank you notes, and as I say, some donations.
Oh, I have a great example of a person who actually went full circle and then some, I believe. She started out, she came to the clinic for a breast health education class, and she actually wasn't even coming. She came along with a friend, and her friend said, come on into the clinic. So she sat in for the class, and she learned how to do the breast self-exam, went home that night and found a lump in her breast, came back to the clinic at the time. This was about 6 or 7 years ago. She had 3 children, the youngest of whom I think was 3 or 4 years old, was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. Came to the clinic, was operated on by our surgeons, received chemotherapy, radiation, everything. Got back on her feet, found a job, worked somewhere else, she was still a patient. She found a job, left the clinic, and then she came back to us as a full-time employee.
Wow.
So now she's back at the clinic, working full-time, and she volunteers teaching our breast health education classes.
Wow.
So that she went the whole way, and she's fabulous. So she works full-time, and then once, I think it's every 2 weeks. In fact, she's doing it tonight, teaching women how to do self-exams. So it's great.
And last year about this time, I opened up an envelope. It turned out to be a $5,000 check with a letter attached to it. This was an individual who had come to Arlington as a refugee from Southeast Asia, came here with absolutely nothing, got tied in with a church, got a referral to AFAC. We helped that individual, and he had gone on to high school, college, and is now running a very successful software development company. And he said in his letter, you know, you gave us food way back then, it helped us survive, and I'm giving back right now.
Wow.
And those are the kind of letters that, you know, choke people up when you open up those kinds of things. I like to see those letters.
Yeah,
Especially
probably
when they have
unsolicited,
$5,000.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
especially
And was it an unsolicited gift?
totally
I mean,
unsolicited,
just-
out of the blue.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, we don't keep track of who came to us. I
Right.
mean, they're still in our database.
Right.
Because I think like Jerry and Jody, oftentimes, unfortunately, our clients come back to us.
Yeah.
These are individuals who do live on the edge, and so they can prosper at good times, but they can also fall back. And that's kind of the other side. It's the sad side. When you see somebody who you haven't seen in 6 months or a year, back in the room, you know, back in our waiting room. That's the sad story.
These are incredible stories, and you know, I imagine that at some point, perhaps as people go through difficulties, they've maybe been in need of food assistance at one point, healthcare services at another, rent assistance at another. You know, maybe the same people in need of multiple services, and I'm wondering about the coordination, if any, that may exist among your organizations and other nonprofits in Arlington who are all working to solve pieces of this immense and very difficult puzzle.
In the 4.5 years I've been with Amen, I've seen a big improvement in that regard of the county Department of Human Services working with the organizations, keeping, establishing a common database for homeless, working together in other ways. Fortunately, Arlington is not that big, and there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be working together. And so if I have questions, if I see a repeat client, for example, I could inquire at the social worker, and they might just give me a rundown. Well, they're working with doorways, for example, and they need help here or whatever, just so I know that someone's on top of their case. And but they'd have records of referrals to AFAC, to the free clinic. At least that's been my experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And the free clinic as well. We were talking in the room before that we all know one another when I looked at the list, because I think we share a lot of the same people in Arlington. But, excuse me, you can talk. I've got...
I think the
Charlie, pick up.
one of the important things that happens in Arlington, and certainly at AFAC, is that we will serve anybody on a one-time basis. If you come in, you have an Arlington County ID. But then what we try to do is ask them to go to Arlington County Department of Human Services, particularly the Crisis Assistance Bureau, because you know, the lack of food is only a symptom. It's a symptom of unemployment, underemployment, abuse issues, mental health issues. And at DHS, they have all sorts of resources, like the free clinic, like Jerry's activities, like our activity. And they can then return a referral back to us, but in doing so, they're looking at the whole family and the whole range of issues that family may be dealing with. So, and the other thing is, we know everyone, okay? We know each other, and we talk a lot together, and we do cooperate. And I think that's one of the other sides of this community, is how the nonprofits really do try to work together and are trying to work together better in the future.
Well, we're certainly in the last stages of our show, so if you'd like to ask a question and you're watching at home, send us an email, voicebox@arlingtonmedia.org. If anyone in our studio audience has a question, be sure to just grab my attention. You all were quite modest when you talked about your wish lists in terms of what you kind of want from help in the community, and I realize what you want from individuals is different than what you'd want overall. And my question here is, you know, you're all in the business. What distinguishes nonprofits from for-profit corporations, ultimately, you all would like to be out of business one day, to have no needs that serve your mission, and that would be the true marker of success. What's going to get us there? What do you need to see happen in society to really move us closer to the point where you all are just really out of business? Not that I want to see any of you unemployed, but how do we change these things dramatically?
That's a tough question, and you can't turn on a radio talk show without people talking about folks who aren't earning enough money. You know, I mean, wages have stagnated, have deteriorated over the decades, and that is certainly an issue that concerns me. I'm not sure I'm the expert to know what the solution is, and I hope that finally, you know, members of the government, both legislative and in the White House, will tackle this in a realistic way and really take care of the problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think rising healthcare costs tend to be a problem for everybody, you know, even if you have insurance or not, and certainly for our patients, that's a huge gap. I don't know, with the new healthcare law, you know, that would take care of some of it, or in some version of that law, certainly some reform of healthcare that, you know, government would take on more of the responsibility, and then private industry would change somehow. Healthcare costs are growing rapidly, which affects, you know, insurance and affects healthcare providers. The grand answer, I don't know. Certainly employment is big, but many of our patients are employed, but it doesn't put them nearly within reach of being able to afford health insurance as it's currently structured. So.
Those wages are low or stagnating. It's a problem. Even if they have a job.
I mean, in my sense, I think it's clearly we need more jobs. And particularly in Arlington County, we need jobs that are paying a living wage, not the $7.25 that the minimum wage is. You know, our folks need jobs that pay $13, $14 to survive, you know, even barely in Arlington County.
Sure.
And so that's what we really need. We are seeing some of our clients get jobs. There's a lady that I meet up with at the Harris Teeter on Glebe. She is behind the deli counter. She's one of our clients. I see her every Tuesday morning. But the fact of the matter is, she isn't being paid well, number one, and she hasn't got the number of hours needed to support, and she's got 2 children.
Right.
You know, she has transportation costs, housing costs. And so what we really need is, you know, an understanding that $7.25 is no longer a minimum wage. You really cannot get by on that. We need a living wage in this county.
Yeah.
And you know, certainly we've through this conversation, you know, what economists call, you know, your organizations have counter-cyclical pressures. You know, when times are rough, you know, your needs go up, and in many cases, in many communities, the assistance doesn't increase to support that increased need. Well, that hasn't been the problem in Arlington, it sounds like, up until this point. But I wonder, if we look at the news, you know, we all pay attention to Washington, our neighbor across the river, and it seems that the federal government is positioning itself to shrink, to retrench a little bit. And our economy, our regional economy, is so dependent on federal spending and all of its various guises to support our growth. Do you fear that if the federal government actually retrenches and that puts our local economy in jeopardy, that this might in turn have serious consequences for your organizations?
I think there would be no doubt that would be the consequence. And I haven't thought it through. It's a little scary to think it through that far.
I didn't mean to alarm you. We are close to Halloween, so maybe though it's appropriate. I don't know.
I mean, over the years we have seen local government take on more that the federal government has given up, or even state government. And it concerns me.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've already seen people at the free clinic who never ever expected to be at a free clinic. I don't think they ever envisioned themselves as a person in need of those services. So that changed, somewhat in 2008. I think one element of healthcare in America that is particularly frightening to people is it is tied to your job. So when you lose your job, you lose your health care. And we have COBRA, we have some mechanisms in place to try and take care of that, but they're very, very expensive. So it's a cloud, it's more than worrying about your job when that goes away along with it. It's, I'm hopeful that isn't going to happen, but.
Yeah, I think that, my fear is actually a double fear. It's people losing their jobs, their federal jobs, but it's also a threat to the social safety network and all of those social programs that the federal government supports now. They have been cut seriously already, and some of the skeptics are saying it's going to get cut even more. So that not only puts people out of work, but then cuts the resources of the agencies who are trying to help. It's really a double dip situation, and that's my biggest fear.
So, Arlingtonians listening, even though it may seem from this conversation that these organizations and the clients that they serve have been able to weather the recession thus far because of what our region looks like and what the engine of growth is, we may not be out of the woods yet. And along those lines, we just have a few minutes left tonight. I'm sorry about that because I want to continue this on and on. But what would you say to people as we approach the holiday season in terms of your message to them about how they could best help not just your agencies, but the clients that you see and all of their various needs? What can people do at home right now? We know that they can call you up and volunteer, but what else can they do during this season when people are perhaps at their most generous?
For AFAC, they can run a food drive for us. And there's no age for running a food drive. We've had donations from 12-year-old little girls who have run raffles and bought food for us. That's the important time. When the rest of the nation is sitting down to a table full of food, think about those who do not sit down to a table full of food. And that's what we try to help with, a very basic need.
Okay, and they can find out more about how to do that by
on our
visiting your website,
right.
afac.org?
Yes,
Okay.
afac.org.
Wonderful.
And the clinic actually raises a considerable amount of money in this season because I think people who are, who have been lucky feel a need to contribute, and we've been the beneficiary of that every year. And we have a large holiday mailing going out, and it tells, every year we try and tell a different patient's story, and I think people appreciate that personal touch, and so, money is always a good thing.
And in full disclosure, viewers, I am a board member for the Arlington Free Clinic, and another thing that I can tell you, periodically throughout the year at very generous Arlington restaurants throughout town, they allow a portion of, receipts that night that are made at the restaurant to go to the free clinic. So when you see of those opportunities in the community, those are small things that you can do that don't really change your normal routine, but you could help people in need. Jerry, I'll leave it to you.
Well, of course, I would hope that people think of their neighbors. And as said here, there are some who are not eating at the table. There are some who may not be able to buy their children Christmas gifts. And give. Just, give in any way you can. In our case, people could have a car wash or a bake sale. Kids could do that. Adults could do that. Just contact us and find out how you can help. We participate in the Help the Homeless program, which is big for us. We raise about 25% of our non-county income through that program.
And that's in jeopardy, as I understand.
That's in jeopardy in the future. And so this year, they're providing some nice incentives, matching incentives to donations. And if you want to know more, you can contact us at the AMAN office or via the website about that.
Remember, with skyrocketing utility costs, we're going to have a lot of needs that are going to be presented to you in the coming months. This has been a tremendous conversation, an insightful conversation. There are great needs in Arlington, folks, but there are great organizations meeting those needs. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Jody, and thank you, Jerry. This has been VoiceBox. Wish you all a happy Halloween.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.